Again, the podcast where I invite wonderful women to talk about their lives, their ups, their downs, their ins, their outs, their struggles, and how they were able to get on track and dream again. And I'm hoping maybe some of their stories will help you dream again, and maybe you can come on my show too. Today, I have Richa Gupta, and I, of course, am Kim Rodriguez. Richa is a first generation immigrant from Rajasthan, India. Said that right?
Yes, you did.
Rajasthan, India. And she came to the United States with her husband as a student
dependent,
which
ex-husband.
Ex-husband.
Yes.
Right, student dependent. And she's been through a lot, so obviously she's no longer married to him. And with that being said, she's done well for herself. She's been here over 20 years, and she is a real estate investor and an animal activist. And I know you're going to love her story. So Richa, what is your story?
So first off, Kim, thank you so much for having me on this show. It's an honor and a privilege. And for the longest time, I didn't think I had a story. I thought it was just, every immigrant struggle. Like people come, struggle, make a life. But then I spoke to a couple of people and I was telling them about, where I started, where I've come. And they were like, wow, it is so inspiring. You should tell other people. You should share it. I was like, really? And then I spoke to your lovely assistant and she's like, wow, you have a very inspiring story. And I was like, oh, okay. I will share it then.
I love it. Everyone has a story, right? And there are a lot of immigrants, and I love immigrants. We're all at some point an immigrant at some point, right, in our bloodline. And sharing things, sometimes we get afraid to share things, or we think our story is nothing special, but it is. There's something special about each and every one of us, and especially you.
Thank you.
So tell me, you came with your husband.
Yes.
Right, and he went to school here. And what did you do all day?
So I came here with my husband, and when I came here, I had a very nice job in India. So everybody was like, "Why are you quitting your job?" Because he went to an Ivy League. We had to take a very hefty loan, over 100,000. And they're like, "Why are you quitting your job? Let him go study. You continue your work." But because we got married after a lot of trial and tribulations and stuff, and he's like, "We're not going to get separated." So I came. And what I did was I watched TV the whole day. I was like, okay, now I didn't have to work. I can just watch TV.
That's a great way to become proficient in the English language.
Well, I actually used to work with GE in India.
Oh, so
yeah, and I was one of those, in India actually, if you can afford that education, you speak English before you speak your own mother tongue. So
before your mother tongue?
Yes. So I actually went to a convent. So I was speaking English before I was learning my own alphabet.
I never knew that.
Yes, it's unfortunate in some ways. It's fortunate in some ways. It does prepare you for the corporate world, international world, but in a lot of ways it also robs you of your own cultural language. But that's what I did. I watched TV. I watched reruns of The Nanny and Friends and everything else. Ended up gaining 15 kgs, which is 30 pounds, and got depressed because then winter came and all the trees shed, and they were like, I'm like, these are new trees, it's the apocalypse is coming, the world is ending, and I had seasonal depression because it got dark at 4 o'clock. I'm from the desert. And I was like, what the heck is this thing? So very promptly I left for India in January, after 6 months, because I hadn't quit my job at that time, and I was still working remotely. So I went back. I didn't come back for a while because I was finishing up my job. My sister got married, but then when I came here, my ex was finishing up his MBA. I was lucky enough to get took my GREs. Got accepted for my PhD program.
Nice.
Yes, and I was very, very well supported by my supervisor, or my thesis supervisor in India, so I could transfer some of the credits. And so I finished my PhD here then after that. But it was more too because I had to do something.
Right, you can't.
And I didn't
just
have a
do
work
that.
visa, and I got a scholarship to do my PhD because we couldn't afford
Nice.
another loan.
Right.
And
What is
especially
your
in
PhD in?
in gender studies.
Oh,
Yes.
really?
Yes.
Interesting.
But for the longest time, it was not known to people that I have a PhD because my work line has nothing to do with my
Right.
PhD at all. So yes, that happened, and then there was a struggle of he never ended up having a job. So even though, yeah, it was hard, even though his MBA was from one of the top Ivy League colleges, he couldn't convert any interview into a job.
Wow.
And that started a lot of friction between us. And, we had to maintain our visa status because eventually we needed to maintain our legal status in this country. Long story short, I ended up getting a work visa so that I could get something so I could support the family, right? I never wanted to have a job. So in fact, the funny story is when I was dating him, I had asked him if he was making enough money, would it be okay if I just followed my passions and volunteer work? I have always been into animals and volunteering with them, and he was fine with that. So then things had to take a turn, and I ended up getting a job. And I think at some point he didn't feel good about it, as a provider, as a guy, and I didn't feel good about, I was thinking I was supporting him. I think looking back, he was feeling emasculated. Eventually, our marriage just died. Yeah, 10 years of being together, dating, being married for 11 years. We separated in 2010. I was working very hard. I took the first job that came my way because I just needed to put food on the table and maintain our visa status. So luckily I kept getting, I was working as a project, like a contractor, and then I got a full-time job offer, but I didn't have any leverage to ask for a better salary, better work condition, better anything. Because I was like, my husband has no job, so whatever you give me, I'll take it gladly, because I don't want to have that sword hanging over me after every 3 months. We are like, do we leave? Because on a work visa, if you don't have work, you have to leave the country in 3 months. I mean, 60 days actually. And we have such a hefty loan, we can't pay it off. And my uncle and aunt had to co-sign that loan. So there is no way we can pay it off in our Indian salary. So we were struggling a lot, but still trying to, and then for 5-6 years, he didn't do anything except look for jobs. Then finally he decided he's going to work for cash under the table, to get something, which I think was a big blow for him because he's a Yale graduate working for $10 an hour.
It's just amazing, a Yale graduate, and he couldn't get a job.
And his classmates were all like working for these big corporations, for these big financial companies, and our directors, VPs. And so eventually, he started cutting off from his social circle. I could see him, and I don't blame him.
And he was depressed, I'm sure.
Probably was, and then the marriage became very verbally abusive, very toxic. And finally I said, I can't take it anymore. We separated in 2010. There was a lot of abuse eventually, and
it's not easy.
I've
been there. I've been there too, and you have this expectation, and then life happens.
It does.
Right?
And I never wanted to leave my country. I was good. My parents are both professionals. I had a good life. It was his dream to be here, and I was like, okay, I don't ever want to be the one who held you back. So if that's your dream, we'll follow it. And then here we were, and all this time I felt like I was being the team player, supporting him. Never realized that my being that supportive, that the strong woman, was taking away the masculine from him. I don't know, when you look back. It's a
very hard balance. When you look back, it's different. You're seeing your own mind. Here's what I got to do. We want to survive. We want to stay here. He really wants to stay here. So you were working hard to make sure that you could stay here.
Hindsight is 20/20, right?
Yeah. And he's going through his own things, and you're not communicating together.
And then there was a lot of yelling. It was basically there were two people, one speaking Chinese, one talking Greek, and there was no communication. There was just yelling and throwing things, and it was just so toxic. A lot of times I didn't want to come back home after work, but I'm also
you just work later.
And I was like, I'm a resourceful person. I want to you give me a problem. My first reaction is, okay, let's solve it.
Right.
How do we?
That's what
how
we do.
Yeah. And eventually, I have learned that okay, sometimes people will tell me a problem just because they want to win, not because they want a solution.
Correct.
But at that time, I didn't have that wisdom. So, so that was my relationship ended, and it was a great marriage till it was not a great marriage, and then we separated. And because by that time he was my dependent on the visa status, he had to leave the country. So we finally divorced, and I had to stay back here because my uncle and aunt had signed the loan, so I couldn't just say here it's still $90,000 paid off, I'm going. So I ended up taking on
you
that
made
loan.
It right. You're
because he still didn't have a job,
so wonderful person.
Oh, but I mean, he still didn't have a job. What would I have asked him?
Yeah.
So
where is he now? Do you know?
He's in India. He got remarried within a year of our divorce and didn't have a job for the longest time. But I think he's doing something now. He's a brilliant guy, like really brainy. I think he just has some behavioral issues that couldn't work in a corporate environment. But
that happens.
I wish him the best. Yeah.
So you climbed the corporate ladder. Your marriage ended. You climbed the corporate ladder, and after that, 10 years. So now the next 10 years. What happened over the next 10 years?
Yeah, so I became totally debt-free from that education loan in 2016. Yes, it was not that long ago when I think about it. 2016, 2013, I got my divorce finalized, which was literally 10 years ago. Not totally. And then 2016, I paid off that loan. I literally lived on what's the equivalent, the American equivalent of noodles and
ramen noodles. Ramen noodles. The ramen noodle diet. Yeah.
And I did not have my hair cut till I went to India after 4 years because I'm like, I'm not paying this much money for it. I'll go to India get my hair cut. So, and you can see my hair, they need cutting. So I scrimped and saved, and I was like, I will never have debt. But in 2017, I had a really bad breakup because I was like, oh my God, I don't have family here. I need to have another relationship, blah, blah, blah. Who'll look after me if I break a bone? So I was in that phase. But I think at that time, I also got into kickboxing. And that saved my confidence. I found it through Groupon, like a class. I got hooked into it.
Groupon did a lot of good things for us, right?
It did, and that time
kickboxing, I would learn how to sail.
A plug for Groupon. So I found that, and I was like, okay, that's not expensive. I can afford $25 for 2 classes, and I did. And I got hooked, and it was like, every time I was frustrated. And people thought I was, oh, you're such a strong person, you're such a go-getter. Nobody realized I have always been body shamed. I've always been big. While growing up, my mother's a physician. So now I see that her heart was in the right place, but her always was like, lose some weight, who's going to marry you? Lose some weight, like you'll have so many problems. So my value was always like how I looked. So that kickboxing, that divorce took a lot out of my self-confidence. And of course, with him and our marriage towards the last couple of years, there was no spark. So there was nothing happening in that department. So it took a lot out of my confidence, sorry about that. So when I took the kickboxing, it brought back, like, I was empowered.
That's so good, right?
So I entered the ring before I turned 40. That was my goal, to enter the ring by the time I'm 40.
And you entered the ring, so you took kickboxing to fight?
Yes, I was fighting.
So this is not kickboxing just to exercise.
No, I was fighting.
To kick some ass.
Well, yes, but in my first fight, it was an exhibition fight, and exhibition fights, depending on the dojo or the studio you're at, they can pair you. And I got paired with like a 24-year-old Mexican kid.
Wow.
And so he...
A man?
Yeah, but these are exhibition fights.
Yeah.
It's not
but I don't know what that means.
You're just showing some moves.
Just showing some
moves. It's not a title fight.
To win or lose.
Yeah. But he did land a couple of kicks on my ribs, and I cracked 2 ribs. But I did land a punch on his nose, so that was more bloody. So people were like, oh my God. So, but then I did one more fight after that, and then I did not enter the ring after. Yeah, because...
Did you ever in a million years think you want to kickbox?
No, I actually did judo in college.
You did?
Yeah, but I was always a sports, like I was a...
Athletic.
I was in my university swim team, because I left home I'm from Jaipur. I left home, and after 12 I've been in Delhi. So I did. So I was in my swim team. We actually won the 1993, and I'm dating myself. International Whitewater Rafting Championship, all women.
Nice.
Yeah. So I've been always athletic, but always big. So that was a huge part of my family's thing.
And back when we were athletic and we thought we were big, we really weren't that big, right?
Oh, my mother. And when
we
I
were
used
muscular
to,
and toned. Yeah.
That's what I thought. But my mom would always say, "Don't work out so much. You'll start looking like a man." And I was like, "Even men don't look like men. Like, what are you talking about?" But those were the perceptions. And so yeah, I started doing kickboxing, and then but I was also like this very vulnerable person inside who was like looking for somebody to like her in spite of her bigness or in spite of her so I had a few failed miserable relationships right after my marriage because I was just looking for that validation. I'm not proud of them, but they happened.
But it happens. That's how we learn. Yeah.
And in 2017 I had this really, really bad breakup, and that's when I was like, okay, in all this failed relationship, I'm the common factor. So let's take a look at myself. Right. Let's turn inwards and see what can be fixed. Because initially I was like, well, this is who I am. If I change myself, then I'm not being true to myself. But then I realized maybe who I am is not the best version of who I can be.
Right.
So then I registered. That's the most expensive investment I did in myself. I signed up for an online relationship coaching for $5,000. It was the best decision I took.
And what did you learn from that?
So it's a program, and another shameless plug for this lady, Violet Lang. She runs this. It was called Queens of Pleasure at that time. She's not doing that particular course, but she's an amazing coach. My life turned like this. I didn't think you could change attachment styles. I had an anxious attachment style. I was like, childhood trauma, whatever. Like, I always wanted to belong. I always wanted to get validated. I always wanted to had that reassurance that, okay, you're still important. I'm no longer like that. It took me about 1.5 years to do all these exercises. She does a lot of embodiment practices also.
Nice.
I remember the first question she had asked me, when you feel angry, where do you feel it? I'm like, in my head. When you feel happy, where do you feel it? In my head. And I realized all my emotions are in my head.
Wow.
And she's like, nowhere in your body. I thought because I'm a sports person, I'm very in touch with my body. I wasn't. I was so disconnected with my body. And now I'm not. And now when I'm dating, so I'm still single. Yeah. But so for everybody out there,
she's
I'm
single. She's available.
Single and ready to mingle. But I am more focused on the quality of my life and what I can bring to somebody else's life as a partner, rather than being very anxious about having a partner.
Yeah, that's the mistake that I think a lot of us make, right? Very anxious about having a partner. And other people, getting married or having relationships, and then you being the one friend that doesn't have one, So,
and then you're like, what's wrong with me? And then you
there's
realize,
nothing wrong with you.
Yeah, it's just not your time. And when the time comes, it would be awesome.
Yeah.
And I realized that, people are here for a reason, season, forever.
Yeah.
2 months, 7 months,
yeah.
and not. Yeah. And one of the best advice I got was, make a list of things you want in a man, and then become those things.
Right.
And if that's what you want, I mean, nobody wants a carbon copy, but those qualities,
those qualities, yes, the values.
Yeah. So after that program, I enrolled, and then I said, let me focus on myself. So in 2018, that's when my journey started. Like, I became debt free in 2016. I started focusing on my work. I started building some savings, and because I had literally no savings until that time. And then I actually enrolled in Fortune Builders, which is
Fortune Builders. So for the people who don't know, it's a real estate investment
training, education.
It's rather expensive.
Very expensive. I paid, and now I realize, looking back, I could have learned a lot without that kind of investment, but I didn't know anybody in the
investment community. Yeah.
Not anywhere. And also the friend circle I have in the Indian community, I am the odd one out. Like, I am a single woman, no human kids, and a lot of people don't know how to box me. Like, I defy all definitions of where to fit me.
Yeah.
So men don't know how to talk to me, in the sense of, like, if I start talking investments, they'll be like, what do you know, like you're a woman. And the women there
in the Indian culture,
in the Indian community, right? And the Indian community, the women in my circle at least, are either they have jobs, the regular jobs, or most of them are stay-at-home women, mom, you know. So I have to be a very different person in that environment. And a few times I have wanted to, like, you know, when you are from two different cultures, you straddle two different worlds,
right?
And it's very common for, you know, people with multiple ethnicities to, it's very subtle, but it's very, very easy also for us to transition between those two worlds and cultures. So I had no exposure to any of that. So I said, okay, this is something that's being offered. So I paid a hefty amount of money. But also my visa status also did not allow me to have anything but passive income. So I can't be on a work visa, you can't earn money except for your own job. But passively you can trade, like you can do, like, you know, investments in stocks and houses. But technically, if you own a house, you can't even go and hammer a nail because that's working on your house.
Really?
So you can rent it out and have somebody manage it for you. And I'm very by the book person in those matters. So I ended up buying houses, as it turned out, in Missouri. And we are in Rhode Island. So I had to perforce anyway, you know, kind of outsource the management part.
Right, so it worked out.
Yeah, so that's how my investment journey started. And I have to give credit to amazing mentors that I found along the way. The first person that I bought the house from was also from Fortune Builders. So we kind of had that kind of trust factor, sort of.
Yeah, that when people come together, things happen,
right? Things happen,
and you have to be able to do the relationship, so the communication, and, you know, cross culture, same culture, different culture,
different culture,
different culture, and that's interesting. But relationships are important.
And I've been good at, like, you know, build, and I value relationships over anything else, even at work. That's one of my, like, strong points, is like people, relationship building, and it has always served me well. I'm a genuinely curious and interested in other people.
Yeah.
Some people might call it nosy, but
I'm like you.
We come from a place of care. Yes. You know, I am always willing to help as much as I can, but I also don't need to pry. I'm there when people need to talk. But so I value building relationships. So that's how I started. Then I started buying houses, selling houses, not as a realtor, but just as an investor. And I have always volunteered at cat shelters, even 10, 12, 13 years ago. Yeah. Somebody told me.
So we went from the houses to, and all that time you were volunteering at cat shelters.
Oh, yeah.
Because you have a place in your heart for animals.
Animals,
specifically cats.
Well, no, all animals. They can be spiders and cockroaches and snakes and every animal.
That's one of my daughters is like that since she was little. Any kind of animal. It could be bugs, like saying insects, bugs, snakes, cats, dogs.
For me, life is sacred.
Yes.
So even plants, flowers.
I love that. Yes.
So in fact, 13 years ago, when I was doing a project at Pfizer, there was this lady there, and she told me that she was fostering kittens. I had never heard of, like, in India we don't foster animals, and I had no idea about what that concept was. So she explained to me, and I was like, wow, okay, so that means I can actually have animals and not have to, like, have them for, like, not have that responsibility for all their lives, but I can take care of them. I would love to do that. Like, what an amazing concept. So, and also in India, at that time, at least 20 years ago, cats were not, like, popular pets. There were street cats, alley cats, but nobody had cats as pets. At least I had never known anybody who had cats as pets. In fact, I remember once I had taken a street kitten, and my grandmother, my nanny, was furious. She's like, cats are, like, evil, and they're dirty, and they're like this, like, why do you have a cat in the house? And eventually the cat ran away because, I mean, you know, cats are there, like, you know, they don't want to stay in the house. But so anyway, so we started fostering cats at that time, and we fostered for a year, realized how amazing cats are, how amazingly affectionate they are, not at all like the standoffish, rude, independent image that they have. And we ended up adopting, and I say we because I was married at that time, we ended up adopting our 12th set of babies that we had.
So was this with your first husband?
I've only had one
You
husband.
only had, well, I didn't
Yes.
know. I didn't know because
No,
I'm
just
like,
one
because
husband.
we didn't hear
Yeah.
anything about the animals till just now.
So no, we've had.
You had
Yeah.
okay.
So one of my 13-year-old boys passed away last year.
Aw.
But I still have one more. Like he's a Maine Coon. I call him. He's my heartbeat. And he is still, knock on wood, healthy, spritey, and very well. And since then, I've added to my fur family.
Yeah.
Yep. I have a dog and a cat, all rescues.
Nice.
And I also started. I know I'm jumping topics, but
it's okay. We went from marriage to relationships and schooling to real estate and learning, and now where your heart is,
yes,
right? Animals.
Yes. And when Harya, my 13-year-old boy, passed away last year, I wanted to do something to honor his memory. So I started this charity called Perfect Henna, like
I love it. Yeah.
So I've been practicing henna. So I paint and like dabble in like, sketches and stuff. So I started doing henna and I realized I have a gift. I can do henna designs. So I said, okay, how about I do henna at festivals and parties and like, fairs. So I started doing that last September. And I actually got a good response. I did only like 4 or 5 events.
Yeah.
And again, I had no exposure of the event world, the vendor world. But I started finding out, and every single penny I make from those events of profit after event fees and everything is donated to cat shelters. So that's my way of like,
giving back. Yeah.
Yeah. So that, and then the other part of my struggle that was hard for me to share, but I want to share is infertility issues, right?
Oh, yeah. That's a big part of the marriage, right?
Well, it wasn't at all actually part of the marriage at all, because initially I'd never wanted to have kids because I was like, there's so many kids, if I want to, I'll adopt. But then by the time I was turning 35, I realized, oh wait, I'm a woman, I have a shelf life. At least my uterus and my eggs have a shelf life. So I was like, oh, well, how about we have kids? And my ex was like, I don't have a job. I don't think I want to have kids. I can't support, blah, blah, blah. So, we had this. And then by the time our marriage was also going downhill, so I was like, all right, I don't know if we can. And then our parents were like, when you have a child, things turn around, they bring their own fate. I was like, yeah, I can't have a child in this kind of a
environment. Yeah.
So I didn't. But then by the time I was 38, 39, I was like, wait, I am not finding a partner. I'm divorced. I want to have a child. Because by the time my sister had her second son, and so my sister lives in Australia, but I visited a few times, and I realized, oh, I would actually make a good mother. I have it in me, and
You do have it in you. Yeah.
Thank you. And I was like, well, maybe I should just go for IVF, forget having a partner, let's just have a child. So then I started, but I was kind of not very nervous about how my family would react, because it's a very unconventional thing to be a single mother, an unmarried mother. But by the time I was already 39 plus, and my mom being an OBGYN, she was like, and I was overweight, I've had other medical issues. So my mom was like, are you sure? And my dad, who comes from a very small conservative family, said the most amazing thing. He said, if you want to be a mother, you should be a mother.
Oh.
Nobody should be taking that right away from you. And that was like, so I was like, really? He said, it's going to be hard because nobody's there. I know.
Right.
It was like, he said, it's going to be hard. Both my parents are in the 70s now. And they're like, we'll support you as much as we can, but my mother has severe rheumatoid arthritis. So she's like, I'll do as much as I can, but I'm not as, physically able to. I said, all I need is your emotional and your support. That's it. So I started doing the rounds of, fertility clinics, whatever.
All by yourself.
I had a couple of friends here.
That were supporting.
Yeah, but it was not a very widely publicized thing because, again, there's a lot of, questions. And a couple of my very close friends knew, and we were looking at, one day we said we're going to have this party of picking up a donor. And we'll have a donor party. And then people were like, do you not want to go with somebody? Because there were guys that were interested in me and be like, why not have a baby? And I'm like, no, I don't want that complication down the line with the legal, like somebody having a claim. Let's just make it very transactional. Let's just have a donor, unidentified donor, have a baby. But in that process, they found out that I had a lot of, my eggs were good, my ovaries were excellent, my uterus was crapped out. So then after, like they said, I have a lot of fibroids. There was one that was so giant, they said, there's no space for a baby. And we'll have to scrape it out, and it will take you about 6 months to heal. And with that history, we don't know how many takes it will take for you to carry a pregnancy to full term. And then in the meantime, I had pedunculated fibroids, which means I had fibroids growing out of the uterus. And they were just hanging around in my, I don't know, wherever. And then I had started having pains, and then it turns out a few of them were pressing on my vital organs. Some of them. One.
Did you have to have them all taken out?
No, I had to have my uterus taken out.
Right.
Yeah, so I had to have an emergency hysterectomy done.
Oh, emergency, yeah.
Yeah, like within 15 days. My parents came, bless their heart, and they stayed with me. My mom stayed with me for 3 months while I was recovering. And the sad part of all of that was, so May 2017, I had my surgery. So all this while, I was trying to get a baby, and then said, forget a baby, we'll get your uterus out. And I mean, they told me, they said, you can have all this scraped out, taken care of, but now your chances of having a healthy pregnancy, giving birth to a healthy child, is less than 5%. And then I was like, so I struggled a lot with this thought of, let me go ahead and have a child and we'll see. But then the practicality of it, I have no family here, no support structure in that sense. Was I capable of taking care of a special needs child? Right. That's a lot, and then what will happen to that child once I am gone? I have arthritis. Arthritis runs in my family. Really bad arthritis runs in my family. And that's why I've always lifted weights, always worked out, because I know there's no cure for it. You can only slow the progress. That's all you can do. So, and then my mom was like, you'll have so many miscarriages before you can even have a pregnancy. Are you emotionally ready for all of that? And we had a heart to heart, and I said, okay. And she said, if one of the fibers was pressing on my bladder, your bladder is the thinnest membrane of all organs. And she said, if that ruptures, you're looking at a lifetime of carrying a bag outside for, So anyway, and at that time I was dating. So May 2017, I had my surgery. April 2017, I meet this most wonderful guy.
Wow.
And we start dating. On my second date, I asked him, do you want to have kids? He's like, that's rather quick to on a second date. So I told him, I said, I know, but if that's what you want to have, I have to tell you, I'm scheduled for surgery in 14 days, and they're going to take my uterus out. So if you want to have kids, I'm not the person for you. And he's like, because he didn't have kids and he was 45 and I was 42 at that time. So I was like, he's like, no, I mean, if it was to happen, it was to happen, but it's not in something.
Requirement.
Yeah. So I was like, so then we were like, then it was and then he, we fell in love very quickly, blah, blah, blah. And then we're like, let's try and make a baby before, my surgery in 14 days. Of course, it didn't happen, but it was a very whirlwind romance that ended very badly, that kind of left me shattered. But I think it was God's gift to me at that time, because that surgery was a lot of emotional pain. And this guy was there all through it. Because I also started feeling less of a woman, because I'm like, having, your periods, having your uterus is such a big part of who you are. And I started my periods at 10 when I was 10 years old, and I've always had issues. So I was like, will I less be a woman? And then they tell you, your cervix, are you going to enjoy your physical, sexual life after? But with him, and then he was so attentive to my parents, because my parents don't drive. I was in the hospital for a whole week because I had to have an open abdominal surgery. My uterus was that cracked out. So I was like, that was God's gift to me, to send me somebody at that time. When I needed the most. For a season. And literally after I was healed, within 2 months of my mother going back, after assuring her, he had his parents fly down to meet my parents to get married. And 2 months after that, he dumped me in the most horrible way possible.
Really?
But that's when I rose up. And another plug for Brené Brown. Anybody who needs Brené Brown was like, her book Rising Strong and Violet Lang's coaching saved me. Wow. And that's when I was like, all right, I'm going to come back, buy houses like crazy. So then I never thought 5 years ago, 2017 was literally 5 years ago, right? I had never thought I would be a homeowner. I would have this amazing life that I just got another job with almost a 40% hike. and with this amazing dog, amazing, like I couldn't have asked for a better life at this point.
Wow.
And
isn't that excellent?
yeah, and I'm still working
So
with my
you can
animals.
dream again, right?
Yes.
And your
Oh my God.
animals, and you have plans for that too, right?
So I started Perfect Kingdom. So I got laid off.
that was the kicker, right? So not only, and that was recently.
Yes, after 14 years with my last company, because I never moved because I was a work visa. So again, I call my God physics. So whatever you call, the higher power, she has been very kind. Like at the right moment, I get blessed. So after 14 years of being with the same company or bank, and I'm not in IT like all Indians are. I'm not a physician either. Just a disclaimer, So I got laid off, and I was devastated because I thought I was doing my whole self-worth was getting questioned, because I'm like, I thought I was doing important work. I was part of mergers and acquisitions. I was blah 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 blah, and suddenly, because I had that kind of access, that kind of security clearance, they were like, okay, this is it. Please don't do any work. We are not taking your access away, so you can still do your networking, whatever, but don't do any work. And I was like, really? I can be like this, done, replaced? Like, what? So that was a huge thing. But then I was like, I didn't do anything wrong. I'm not going to hang my head in shame. So actually the next day I showed up for a Diwali festival, which I was coordinating. They told me not to, and I said, this is what I'm doing. I am comparing the entire program. Do you just want me to not show up? Like, I'm bringing items for this function. So then the HR said, okay, you can go. And my colleagues were stunned when they found out. And they said, we're very surprised. You're very brave to come. And, I said, why? I haven't done anything wrong. Why should I slink away in shame? It's right. 300 people got laid off. I was one of them. Yeah. So for about a month.
And that's what a lot of people do, right? Yeah. When things like that happen, they internalize it and they either go down.
Yeah. It took me a while. I won't lie. I mean, it did make me question, what was I working on? Was it important? What's the point of living in this? The whole reason I'm here is because of the job. But my green card had come just in June of last year. So I was like, okay, so I don't have to have the knee-jerk reaction of, oh my God, I don't have a job, I need to find something else, or I have to leave the country. So I said, okay, let me think. So first I had to figure out.
It took you 20 years to get a green card?
Yes, because the waiting line is this long for Indian citizens. Because Indians and Chinese have the longest waiting line. And because mine is an employee-sponsored green card, if it was a marriage-sponsored, if I had married somebody who had a green card, it would have been much faster, a citizen. But employee-sponsored takes that long. Yeah, so. And because also I was a student, and then, But yeah, it took a very long time. And then, it took me a little while, a month, to figure out how to even survive in this country without a job, because all I had known is job and medical insurance. Like, oh, fish, I don't have medical insurance. How do you even get medical insurance if you don't have a job here? Right. Okay. Oh, I can collect unemployment, or then employment salary. Oh no, you can't, because you just got your green card. You haven't made enough money. And I was like, wait, I've been working here for 20 years. Yeah. So that was a whole drama. And then, so it was this whole thing. Then I was like, you know what? And my sister said, I was like, do you think God is punishing me because I got so cocky with my job, or like I was getting overconfident, like, oh, I know that. She's like, if he wanted to punish you, you would have been laid off before your green card came. Right. Now she's telling you to fly. Right. To follow your dreams.
Follow your dreams.
And
dream again, right?
Like, do whatever
do what you're really passionate about.
She's like, you can do whatever.
Yeah, you can do whatever. Look at everything that you've been through.
So I was like, right. So again, I was like, what do I want to do? Animals have always been what I want to do. So I said, all right, I want to start animal daycare. So I started Perfect Kingdom. Yeah. And it's doggy daycare and overnight pajama parties that I do.
I love
it. Right now I do it out of my house, and I eventually want to scale it, but I also want to have like a non-profit aspect to it, because I know when I adopted my dog and I wanted to travel, it can get expensive, boarding a dog. So my rates are very reasonable, but I also want to offer, once I have scaled it and I have a commercial space, I can offer a day or eventually a little bit more, where I'll there's no fee and no questions asked. I'm not going to ask you how much you make. Like, it's an honor system. If you think you can't afford this, no questions asked, just leave your dog with me for free. And that's what I want to do as a, back to the community, because I'm seeing now with COVID over, shelters are getting overburdened with dogs that are being returned, abandoned.
Really?
Yeah, people don't realize when you adopt a life, it's a life. It's not a toy. Like you see on Easter, around like April, May, we have an influx of rabbits and chicken and ducks because people buy them for their kids. These are lives that need, and they have personalities, they feel pain. I can go on and on, and I don't want to sound lectury, but it's really saddens me that how dispensable they think this life is. Oh, it's only a rabbit, it's only a duck. It's still a life. So that's what I want to offer back. And I also do wildlife rehabbing. I used to be a certified wildlife rehabber. I no longer am certified because I didn't take the exam. But I used to volunteer at the wildlife clinic. I still volunteer at a few shelters. And then I also started connecting with the Indian artisans. My grandmother has been a huge influence from my mom's side. So we call Nani. Like, we have names for all relationships. Yeah. So
one of my grandmothers is Nani. Nani, yeah.
Her name is Nani?
No, that's what I call her.
Oh, no.
I don't know why, but that's what I call her.
So Nani is, for every Indian, North Indian, Nani means your mother's mother.
Yeah.
That's the address that you give.
Yeah.
And Dadi is your father's mother. Yeah.
Nice.
So that's the address.
Yeah.
Like my sister would call me Didi, means older sister.
Oh.
She won't take my name because I will kill her.
Why is that?
Because I'm her older sister. She needs to respect me.
So she calls you Didi.
Didi, yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
I love the Indian culture. Like, there's so much I don't know about it, but there is, something.
Like, I have a friend who's Indian. She's 68, much older than I am. So I was calling her by her name, and she's from the south. And I was like, I'm very uncomfortable calling you by your name. What can I call you? She said, call me Akka. Akka means the older sister in her language. So now I call her Akka, and I'm much more comfortable.
Nice.
Because it's out of respect. So
respect.
Yeah.
Such a great.
So my Nani was the first female legislative assembly member from my state. Wow. And both my grandparents and their brothers, like siblings, were freedom fighters because India was a colony. And so I come from that lineage of very strong women. My mother, two of her sisters at that time, they were physicians. They came from that era of like, there are a lot of women from my mom's generation who are engineers, who are doctors. So when I came here, I was very surprised that America, considering that supposed to be a much more first world progressive country, like, women still have so much to fight for. And while in India, in my mom's generation, there were so many women who were in the STEM, like science, technology, engineering, medicine. So my grandmother has had a big influence on how I think. And she was always about women empowerment. So she was always trying to do something or the other for the women of the village or the women of the community. So when I've always brought handicrafts, like, so Rajasthan and Jaipur, where I'm from, is famous for its handicrafts. People know, the typical handiwork and crafts and textiles. So I've always brought them back as gifts and stuff. I never paid just go buy. But lately I've started noticing how many layers are there between the artisan who makes them and then finally what gets to the consumer in the shop. And what we pay for that handicraft and what the artisan makes is not even 10% of what goes down, the trickle effect, So, at the last meeting that we had, I've been trying to showcase and find a platform where I can connect directly with those artisans and at least take away as many layers. I cannot never take away all the layers because I am not there myself, so I'll have to have somebody to coordinate. But if I can take away even two of those layers and then pass on the profits to the artisan themselves, especially women who do these very intricate embroidery, mirror work, if I can even impact 10 of them positively, I would be happy. So now that's my next venture, is what I'm trying to sell, these hand embroidered and beaded purses. So I actually signed up for 7 events.
Nice. Yeah. Look at you. So you don't do anything small, do you?
Well, they'll be on the weekends because I start my new job on 13th of February.
Yes.
So I'll be busy. But I'll also be doing my henna at those events, so I can still continue.
Nice. So you do the henna for the cats.
Yeah.
And,
And while I'm doing henna, there's generally a line so they can browse the purses and
Yeah, that's very nice.
So I can profit share.
Do you have any samples for the camera today, or no, not really?
I have my purse that I use. Yeah, but it's my laptop bag. I can show that. I didn't think of bringing samples. I should have, but I can share my. So this is the laptop bag I have that I share.
Very beautiful.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can see the detail on camera, but it does.
Yeah.
All hand embroidered.
And then it has a very thick.
Yes.
Like, so I carried like crossbody basically, and then it carries a pretty amount, like, I have
she's got
a lot of notebooks and things, and I don't have my laptop in it because I took it out, but yeah. So it has
very nice. Yeah. Thank you for sharing.
And then I have little round, I have my page on Facebook, so it's called Perfect Henna, PURRFECT, Perfect Henna.
Perfect Henna.
Yeah.
So
that's there, all the photos out.
What is one thing you want our listeners to understand?
Whatever you seek outside is already inside. So if you're looking for strength, for validation, for wisdom, resilience, it's all there. You just need to tap inside and you'll find it. Yes, support and mentorship, they're all very, very valuable. They can help you from here to here. But if you're down here, face down in the dirt, you need to get yourself up here. Nobody else can do it.
Nobody can do it. Yeah.
Like I have this in bodybuilding world. So I've been doing bodybuilding.
Tell me about the bodybuilding. I didn't forget, but tell me about bodybuilding. I think it was birthed out of the kickboxing, right?
Well, because I am frustrated
of
still being big, and everybody keeps telling me you need to. I know I need to lose weight, but I also want to be my dream is to be muscular, not just thin. I don't want to be thin. I want to be like, Anyway, so I've been doing these bodybuilding programs. Can
you do that again?
Like this?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like,
feel it.
Yeah. I wish I'd worn like sleeveless, but yeah. So in bodybuilding world, they say because we have to really lift heavy, and last 4 days I've been taking a break because it turns out I went very low in magnesium. So I've been feeling very achy. I didn't realize it. So anyway, so I took a break from lifting, but I lift about 200 pounds with my bigger muscles and less weight with smaller muscles, but it takes a lot of time, and then you have to juggle jobs, I have 4 fur kids, so I have to do that and my volunteer things. So they always tell you that only you can do your own push-ups, delegate everything else. So the same thing, like only you can find the inner you.
Yeah. And
so you need to come from the ground up to here, and then everybody else is super important. Like nobody did anything great, alone. Yeah.
That's so true, right?
Yeah. Like the other thing that I found, it's not my saying, but what somebody else was saying, or I heard somewhere, it said, if you want to do something very quickly, do it alone. But if you want to do something really well and collaborative, do it with somebody else.
Yeah.
If you want to reach great heights, do it with other people.
Yeah.
So
that's so true.
Yeah. And real estate is a team sport.
It is totally a team sport. You cannot do it alone.
So I've learned that. And I've learned building relationships, you never know. I had no idea, honestly, because I was like, I make a good living. Why am I hustling? I'm a single person. I have no kids. Who do I have to leave anything to? What's the point? But now I've realized the point for me is because by the time I'm 55, I don't want to be doing a corporate job. I want to be doing full-time volunteer for the animals. I want to go to different sanctuaries and work with wildlife. That's what my dream is. Yeah. I want to make enough passive income so I can travel with my animals and then just work with animals. And I've not heard many people, when I shared that dream, they were like, oh, that's different. And
I love it.
That's what and I want to open an animal hospital in the city that my grandmother was from, in her memory, because there's no animal structure. If you think these shelters here, they're 7-star hotels compared to what's available in India for animals. And it's a really horrible, like, so that's what I want to do, like a spay and neuter program in India. That's what I'm raising money for with my henna. So that's what I want to do, and that's why I hustle. Is, you know,
I love it.
so I can.
You definitely found your purpose, right?
Oh my God! When I'm with animals, and when my dog looks at me, and when I am like, I work with a lot of dogs that have anxiety, like behavioral issues, and then when they come and then people say, "Oh my God, you're an animal whisperer." I get goosebumps. That's the best compliment anybody can give me.
Right?
Yes. Wouldn't that be awesome?
I think it'll become true. So you'll come back on and you'll share
Yes.
these great successes. Is there anything else that you're promoting or something you wish people ask you? Oh, that was a question. Is there something that you wish people would ask you that they haven't? It's kind of an interesting question.
Yeah,
right?
Well, there's something I wish people didn't say. Where it's like, oh, you're so strong. I've learned to hate that word. Can I just say that? Because I wish people would ask me,
yes,
how can I support you?
Right. You're so strong. They're making an assumption that you don't
need support
or help, that you can do it alone. Well, you can.
I'm tired of being alone.
Right? Yes.
Yeah. Like even in a relationship, I have no shame anymore. In fact, it took a while because everybody has this not a wall, but this thing about, oh yeah, I don't need anybody, I'm cool, but now true. When I'm dating or when I have my right now I don't have time for it, but I tell people, I said, I want a guy who'll be like, sweetheart, I got it, don't worry.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who'll say
isn't that,
you lean on me. Yeah. And of course, I'm not saying I'll be this wimpy little oh my God, damsel in distress.
Yeah, I totally
I'm a strong woman,
with that. But strong woman, same here.
Ask me, are you tired? Do you want a break? Yeah. Yes, I want a break. Can you make me chai? Can you give me breakfast in bed? Or
draw me a bath.
Yeah, right? Just every strong person needs somebody to lean on every once in a while.
Yeah.
And I wish people would remember that. And we all have this little girl in our heart. Yeah. And even strong men and strong women, they have these little girls and boys, and sometimes it's good to take care of them too.
To feel cared for.
Exactly.
And loved, right?
Loved and taken care of.
And I love you, and I'm so glad you came.
I am so glad to be here.
And shared your story. Is there anything that we missed?
No, that's pretty much it. I mean, there's so many other different nuances, but I mean,
but this is
big parts. Yes, we got all the big parts.
From India to the United States, and eventually back to India again, right?
Hopefully, we'll see. But I have to say, my parents have been so amazingly supportive.
Yeah.
I didn't realize they would be, honestly speaking, because when I was a horrible teenager. Yeah. I was always fighting with my mom.
You should say sorry.
Well, I mean, sorry, yes, but I mean, and eventually it dawned on me, I'm like, oh, you're never doing the thing, because she is like this and I'm like this. Yeah. Personality-wise, right? Yeah. And my sister is like this. Yeah. So they gel very well. Nice. And I'm always rubbing her the wrong way, and she's rubbing me the wrong way. So I'm then one day it just hit me. I was like, I'm always telling her, why can't you accept me the way I am? But have I accepted her the way she is? And why am I trying to milk a freaking bull? I'm never that. Then who's wrong? She's not wrong. I'm not wrong. It's just wrong expectations. Yeah, put different ways. So since then, our relationship has been much better. So what do you think you did to make that shift happen? Because if one person changes in a relationship, the relationship changes, right? Yeah. It only takes one person to change. So I think, what do you think that you did differently that really had that impact? So I think I did work. I stopped expecting her to do things the way I want to do things. I also have to realize that being much older than I am, she is more set in her ways. And there are some people that process things the way they process them. You might not agree with it. You might think it's not healthy or whatever, but that's the way they find okay. And it works for them. And then so we just need to give them grace, and we just need to let them be who they are.
Yeah.
It might not resonate with me, and I'm a very touchy feely
So before
person.
you would have said something.
Yeah, before like so as I said, I'm a very touchy feely person, right? And I was always like, Mom, hug me, Mom, kiss me, and my mom's like, don't like, she'll be like, okay. But now I don't.
And then that hurt you because you thought she didn't love you.
Exactly.
Because that was not her love language.
It's not. And then I read the book, The Love Languages, and now she actually initiates a hug. She actually initiates a kiss when she sees me, and now it makes so much of a difference because I'm not nagging her to do it. She's doing it herself. And so she's taken 2 steps and I've taken 5 steps, and it's all like, much better. Or like I'm a verbal processor. Like I process things by talking it out. Both my sister and her are not like that. They'll just go through something and they'll shut it out and won't talk about it. And I'm like, why don't you talk about it? Why don't you talk about it? It's healthy to talk. But who am I to say it's healthy or not healthy? That's their way of processing
it and making it through.
And I have learned we need to support people the way they need to be supported, not how I want to dump my support on them. So I need to be supported.
So you have to understand yourself,
exactly,
and how you process information, your love language, how you communicate, and also how that other person. That's how you have a relationship.
Exactly,
right? And that's why relationships fail, because the communication expectations are different.
And also a lot of people don't know what they want when a lot of people don't understand themselves, let alone the other person. And I read somewhere a long time ago that people make love to the other person the way they want to be loved. And the same about support. People support the other person the way they want to be supported. Like I have one of my best friends. When she's going through a bad time, she becomes a hermit. She doesn't want to talk. She wants to be left alone. I'm the total opposite. So when she would be going through a bad time, I would be like, let me come all alone. And one day she told me, she's like, I don't feel supported like this. Just leave. And that day it hit me. Like, some days it just hits you and you're like, I need to support her the way she needs to be supported, not how I want to show her. And vice versa. When I'm going through something bad, I need to be supported the way I need, not how you know how to support me. But some people get it, some people don't. Some people will still try to support you the only way they know how. And then you need, and as Brené Brown says, everybody is trying to do their best in that moment and give them that grace. So that's what changed a lot. And my parents have been amazing. Like they were there for 3 months while I was recovering from my surgery. And for my father, when this guy dumped me and I never thought my father would understand. A white guy at that. Like I was dating a white dude.
Oh, you were?
Yeah, and my dad was like, one day we were watching TV and this guy was there, my parents were there, and I was sitting on the floor, but at his feet, and my dad got furious. He's like, don't you have another sofa? Why are you so because public display of affection is like a big no-no. And I was like, okay, all right. But then when we broke up, my dad immediately said, do you want us to come over? Do you want us to fly? We will fly over, be there for you. And I was like, wow, what a long way, because none of them came when I got divorced. Because they were like, you're such a strong person, you will be fine. And now they have seen me, they understand that I was also letting them see my side of bawling my eyes out and crying and telling them, instead of saying, oh yeah, I'm fine, it's okay, but saying, no, I'm hurting. But
that's the hardest thing as a strong woman to do. Right? To let people see you cry and say, I'm hurting.
I was
I need help, but I don't want to say that I need help. I want support,
But you don't want to
be weak. Yes.
So I've learned to be. But of course you have to.
Right?
And that's why I say Brené Brown. But but again, you need to recognize who is your safe space. Where can you say that?
You can't.
Because you're letting, when you're vulnerable, you're giving the power for other person to hurt you. But then I guess most people, when you let be vulnerable, it allows them
to be vulnerable too, because we all have it.
We all have it.
When I was younger, I used to think that I was the only one with problems. When you're a young little kid, you're like, I'm the only one that has problems. But no, everybody has problems.
Everybody does, and everybody is looking for support. There's a very cheesy toothpaste ad, but it has the best line I've seen. When life opens up, when you do.
What? Toothpaste ad? When life opens, I've never heard it. I don't really watch a lot of TV or anything.
I don't even know it's an Indian ad or a USA ad. I don't know.
When life
opens up when you do.
Wow.
Isn't it amazing?
Yeah.
And it's a cheesy
Life
toothpaste.
opens up when you do. It's so true,
It is.
right? Yeah,
And
that's pretty deep, right?
It is very deep for a toothpaste
Yeah.
head. It's very deep.
It's very deep for a toothpaste head.
Whoever wrote that copy,
yeah,
did a good job.
Up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, I think we've talked about a lot today. I mean, this was a therapy session.
I know. It didn't even feel like
a lot
that.
of information. Yeah, a great conversation. You made my job very, very easy. And I thank you for that. Yeah. So, you know, as we wrap up this session, I hope you got something out of this conversation. I hope that, you know, whatever it is that you need, you're not afraid to ask anymore. And most importantly, no matter where you are in your life today, know that there's always a solution to every problem, right? And there's always someone who's been there, who has had an experience, who could potentially help you.
Yes.
Right?
Absolutely.
So reach out, watch the show, tell someone you love them if that's what you want to do, and know that you are loved. And no matter what your situation, you can dream again. Thanks, and have a great night.